Petrified Forest National Park is in northeastern Arizona. It is an over 52,000 acre national park with petrified wood, archaeological ruins and petroglyphs, and endless photographic opportunities. Today I'm going to take you on my field trip to Petrified Forest. I started my trip with an hour-and-a-half drive from Flagstaff, Arizona, through Winslow, which would actually have been a cool side trip if I had had the time, and headed into the park on the north end. The park is situated around a 28-mile road. There is also an entrance at the south end, but I'll show you that later. At the north end, you first run into the visitor center and a diner. The visitor center is pretty small, but the day I was there was a super friendly ranger answering questions, and there's a 17-minute movie about the area that plays on a loop. Following the road north into the park, right away you have several overlooks that give you incredible views of the Painted Desert. You run into the Painted Desert Inn, which you can no longer actually stay at, but it is a National Historic Landmark now, and you can walk around it and appreciate the architecture and the history. And then walking all the way around it on the outside, you will get to see a huge expanse of landscape. But then continuing on the road, you end up turning and heading south through diverse landscapes. You have a distance where there aren't any overlooks for you, but for you car buffs out there, you can see a bit of history. You travel on Route 66 to actually get to the north entrance. And in fact, it actually runs through the park, but then there's even a portion of old Route 66 that you can stop and check out. Pretty soon you get to Pueblo, which is an area of Pueblo in ruins, and then to Newspaper Rock, where you can see hundreds of petroglyphs. They say there are actually over 650 petroglyphs there. You can see some with the naked eye, but there are several spotting scopes so that you can zoom in on them. Moving along the road, you run into several more stops. I got out at the Tepees, which is a part of the Blue Mesa area, where there is completely different scenery than the previous miles. I got out and I wandered around a bit, but it was an incredibly windy day, so though I had initially planned to do some hiking, I decided to scrap that plan and just hit a bunch of the overlooks along the road and catch sunset at the south end of the park without actually doing any big hikes. I'll definitely be going back though to do hiking. Once I was nearing the south end of the 28-mile road, I reached Rainbow Forest Museum and a small gift shop and snack bar. Unfortunately, they were closed by the time I made it there, so I'll have to go back to visit because the museum has paleontological exhibits and other interesting things from the area. I did go on the Giant Logs Loop there, which is a paved path that loops around what seems like endless amounts of petrified wood, big and small. In fact, some of the logs are absolutely gigantic, hence the name Giant Logs Loop, but it's pretty incredible. And although it had been so windy and cold and there was a thick cloud cover the entire time I was there, sunset ended up being absolutely beautiful. If you're planning a trip to Petrified Forest, it's amazing. Bring your camera and check out their National Park Service website. It has a wealth of information about the park. You can even download the park brochure, which is one of my favorite things about national parks. Those brochures have all kinds of information in them. Now, I did this trip mostly by car, but there are plenty of overlooks right off the road for you to visit and see the park. There is hiking that you could do as well, though. I plan to visit the park again soon and get my feet on the ground. I'll make a second field trip video for you when I do it. In addition to hiking around some of the short maintained trails, I'll visit the Rainbow Forest Museum and I'll explore the wilderness areas. There's also one place within the park that requires a permit, and they only give out 4 each month, so I'm going to try my hardest to get a hold of one. And one last thing, VIPs. I shot a wealth of behind-the-scenes video during this trip, from the car and the equipment that I brought to my thoughts afterwards. And I put it all together and I posted that video a few days ago. If you haven't seen it, there's a link in the description of this video where you can find it. And if you aren't a VIP, but if you're curious about it, you can also follow that link to find out more.